Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Money Talks with Attorney Coral. I am Attorney Coral Plez, the host of this show, which is sponsored by Columbia Savings and Loan. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've had a good couple of weeks, the past couple of weeks, talking about credit scores, how to increase those credit scores, the importance of credit scores. But today we're going to switch gears a little bit. I have a very special guest in the studio with me this morning. Would like to introduce everyone to L. Wesley McKenzie III, who is the Senior Vice President at Columbia Savings and Loan. Wes, how are you this morning?
I'm doing real well. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Attorney Coral.
Yes, no, thank you so much for coming. Since the bank is gracious enough to sponsor this show, we want to talk a little bit about the bank today. But before we do, I'd like to just tell everyone, or have you tell everyone, a little bit of background information on yourself. I understand that you are some homegrown talent from the state of Wisconsin. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I love my city. I love Milwaukee. I went to college in Hampton, Virginia, the illustrious Hampton University at HBCU. I came back in early 2000s.
Okay, hold on, not so fast. What did you major in at Hampton?
In sociology, which makes sense that I'm a banker now, right? I majored in sociology. I like to study people, how things work, how the world. It's the study of societies, right? So it's how people work, how they function, living together, working together. It always interested me how people move in groups, the major society, micro societies within the society.
Right.
It's really interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. So I'm glad that even though you went away for a time, that you came back to Wisconsin. A lot of time we lose our talent. People who, especially talented young Black professionals, move away to other states and y'all stay gone.
They do.
But you came back to Wisconsin.
My family was here. That was a major thing to bring me back. I am, I have strong family ties. My family had ties to Wisconsin and Milwaukee. Had my grandparents had a business in Milwaukee. They had Utopia Child Care Center. It was a preschool for 30 plus years.
I remember that. I didn't realize that was your grandparents.
Yeah, those were my grandparents, Bunny and Jackie Ross. They started in, I believe it was 1972. And that was,
so you come from an entrepreneurial family.
Yeah, definitely. My grandparents. So that's on my mom's side, my grandparents. And then my grandmother's mom, her mom was a beautician by trade. She had her own beauty salon as well. So
another entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely a long line of entrepreneurship in the family.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. So what brought you into the realm of banking?
I had a catering company in, let's say 2007, 2008. And I was, the economy did what it did at that time. And one of the first things to go are your discretionary spending. When a family's tighten up the budget, you're not having a party that you're having catered. You're not ordering food every day. You're packing lunch at home. So the catering business went down, had to find a job. A big financial institution had a call center that I applied for and got the job. So I started out working in collections at a major bank, went from collections to underwriting auto loans, then left that bank and went to another major bank. So I started in 2009, went from collections to underwriting, collections for homes, collections to auto loans, and then underwriting for auto loans. Left that bank, went to a different bank and started small business banking. So I was a small business banker for 6 years. Anything that a small business needed at the bank, I was their point of contact, making sure they had what they needed, whether it be credit cards, merchant processing machines, moving money, whatever they needed to do. And also serving as an advisor. When you meet business customers, you learn different things that business owners are doing. So you become a trusted resource and a professional on their team that's not on their payroll, which is always a benefit to a business owner. And then I left the big bank where I was doing business banking, went to a smaller community bank. It was doing the same thing. Did that for a year, and now I'm at Columbia working as senior vice president.
That is wonderful. Wow. So that educates me a little bit even about your background. I didn't realize all those details. So
Yeah,
you really came in and was able to learn the industry and work your way up.
really. They say started from the bottom. Now we here. I mean, I started in collections. That's about as bottom floor as it gets in terms of bank. I mean, that's the mailroom. If we're gonna, I started in the mailroom,
Okay.
and I would say not just from, of course I did my work and made sure everything was on point, but I always value relationships, and not just relationships, let's say your vertical relationship with somebody that can move you up or move you around, but I may have, let's say, at the call center I probably had 200, 300 horizontal connections that I could make, that then when they moved on someplace else, give me a call. Hey Wes, I got this opportunity over here. Hey Wes, would you be interested in doing this? So that's honestly how every next progression came, was from a relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
That's the way to go. And so you were able to make those connections through the work that you were currently doing. And then people like your work and they like working with you. So then they would call you and let you know about other opportunities.
Correct.
So you also have an interesting family connection to Columbia
I do.
Savings and
I do.
Loan. Yes, tell everybody about that a little bit. I think that's
I
fabulous.
was telling my grandmother about the opportunity that I had about working at Columbia Savings and Loan, and she said, "Oh, my dad got his first mortgage there." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, he was working with someone, and they weren't having any success at getting his loan approved or getting his loan closed, and it wasn't because of it wasn't a financial situation. He made good money. He worked at, I can't remember which factory he worked at. I want to say Ale Smith. And like I said, his wife had her own beauty salon, and she probably had 5 or 6 stylists working for her
Wow.
outside of my grandmother. So,
Wow. So that's not just her doing hair. She had a
oh no,
business.
yeah, when I say in and forgive me to anyone out there, when you're a business owner, you sign someone's checks or you pay someone.
Right.
When you are when you're working by yourself or for yourself, you're solopreneur, uh, sole proprietorship, you're working for yourself. You're self-employed. But when you have payroll, when people are looking to you every 2 weeks for that money to either hit their account or that check to hit their hand, you own a business, and that's what my great grandmother did. My
Right.
grandmother did. So and also speaking to that, I understand the small business owner. I understand the difference between, all right, the family can't do this because we have to meet payroll. We can't go do this because we do have to cover health insurance benefits for 20 employees. So I understand those struggles and what it looks like as a small business owner. Now back to my great grandfather. He couldn't get the loan. It wasn't because he didn't make good money. It wasn't because anything. It was the color of his skin. They were talking the 40s. He's trying to get a loan for a home. And this is when
So 1940s in Milwaukee.
yeah, and this is when what am I trying to say? This is when in people would put in mortgage contracts, do not sell to a black family. So it wouldn't even be that they couldn't they couldn't afford the home. Like, it's literally written into the contract, do not sell to a black family. My grandmother was telling me when they were purchasing their home in the 70s, they encountered some of these same things in these
Wow.
contracts. The 70 people talk about that like that was so long. I was born in the 70s.
Right. I
Like
was getting
that's
ready to
that's
say.
not
And I remember the 70s.
yeah, people, it was a while ago if you talk to my daughter, but I don't
Right.
feel like it
Right.
was that long. And shout out to my daughter. Today's her birthday. She's 15.
Oh,
Shout out
happy
to Gabrielle
birthday.
and
What's her name?
Gabrielle. She's
Gabrielle,
15
happy
today.
birthday to you today.
And shout out to her little sister Danielle, because if I leave her out and don't do that, I'll be in trouble for the
Well, Danielle, shout
remainder
out
of
to you just for being the
the little sister,
daughter
right?
of the wonderful guest that I have in the studio this morning. Okay, so yes, that's fabulous. So
Mhm.
that's very interesting that they would write such discriminatory language right into a mortgage contract or right into a contract with I said a mortgage contract, but was it really like a contract with the realtor
With
to
the
say to
realtor.
the realtor, okay,
Mhm.
I will hire you to sell my home, but you better not sell it to a black person because they
Correct.
didn't want the black people to move into certain neighborhoods.
Correct. And that's exactly what it was. And it was a different time back then. It was a different world. So we can't I'm not justifying that behavior. I'm not condoning it. It was a different world then. The 40s in America, it was legal to do certain things that are illegal now. So even from a discriminatory standpoint, it was a different time. Now, it was wrong. I'm not going to say it was right. It was wrong, but it was a different time. So we can't look at to judge the 40s through the lens of 2024. We're always going to have a different view.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it was wrong.
it definitely was wrong.
If nobody else wants to say it, I'm going to go on record and I'll say that was wrong. I don't care if it was 1970, 1940, or 1924 when this wonderful banking institution was founded. And so I bring that up because Columbia is celebrating 100 years in business this year. Isn't that fabulous?
That's a major milestone.
Absolutely.
I don't care who you are to start something in 1924 and to still have it going today. That's a major accomplishment. Black, white, anything. And then you add on top of that it is a Black institution, speaking to how different the world was in 1924. A Black business being started in 1924. We think about the challenges that Black businesses face today, multiply that tenfold, the challenges that they faced back then.
Absolutely.
So not only do they start the business during the face of adversity, they make it through all types of changes in America.
Right.
You know, we're talking 1924.
Right.
This is before. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that I'm going to ask you to talk more about that, and we're going to talk with everyone, and I'm going to invite callers to call in with any recollections that some people here may even have that they'll want to add to the conversation. The number here is 414-444-5250. But before we start taking the calls, I would just like to give some acknowledgments to the people who are at this bank working hard right now.
Please do. We have the greatest team in Milwaukee.
Yes. So we've got some hardworking ladies at the bank who are right there right now holding it down.
They are.
So I would like to give a shout out to Ngozi, to Noel, Monica, Rachel. Linda is off today.
We still shout Linda out to everybody.
Absolutely.
The Fabulous Five. the Fab Five.
Right. And to go back a little bit of history, I would like to acknowledge here today and show the utmost respect for Mr. George Gary, who understand was kind of like you. He joined the bank as a lender, and he worked his way up to have the presidency of this bank. And as I understand, about nearly 50 years of service to the bank, and 40 of it as the former president, from what I understand.
That was an amazing thing that he did essentially put the bank on his back, and carried it. We're celebrating 100 years, and like you just said,
he worked did half of it.
He worked for 50, so that, and we can't neglect that.
Right.
We can't, he is eternally etched in the legacy of Columbia Savings and Loan. He was there for half of it.
Right.
And then, like you said, started as a lender, worked his way up, built the relationships. Everyone that comes in that bank knew him.
Right.
Everyone that comes in knows him. And he, understanding the importance of relationships, understanding the importance of being in the community. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone respected him. So that is part of Columbia's legacy. That is part of something that can't be erased in Milwaukee.
Right. So I would like to also acknowledge Mr. Ray Allen, who was the president of the bank for a period of time, not as long a time as Mr. George Gary, but Ray Allen had something in common with you, that his mother and father got their home loan from Columbia Savings and Loan. And then he eventually ascended to the presidency of this bank. Isn't that something?
It is an amazing... It's amazing how Columbia has touched so many of the Black families in Milwaukee, and that it's not like we don't have a roll of everyone that Columbia has touched, or we don't have a, sign in here. But if you are from Milwaukee, or you've been in Milwaukee for any length of time, and you talk to people in your family, I think after the fifth conversation, are between the first and fifth conversation, you're going to run into someone that's got a story about Columbia. Oh, I used to work up there when I was in college, or oh, I did this, or oh, I did that, or yeah, we were always going up there doing something. So I think that's the amazing part to me about Columbia.
Right, right. So, to the audience, if you've got those types of stories to share with us this morning, please call
Yeah.
in at 414-444-5250 while I continue with my acknowledgments. I'd like to acknowledge the current board members of this bank, Mr. Ed Murphy, retired state government official, Reverend Dr. Moses Fuller, who is a pastor, Steve Moore, FinTech leader. Of course, you, Mr. L. Wesley McKenzie III. I just call him Wes, who is
That
also
works.
a director on the board. And last but not least, myself, Coral Ples.
Mhm.
I was just recently named a director on the board. Now, before I go any further, and he might not be too happy with me, I have to acknowledge the leader of this bank, the CEO, the president of the bank, the chair of the board, Mr. Ernest Jones.
Definitely.
Yes, I have to acknowledge
Definitely.
him today.
Yeah.
Now, I refer to him as a reluctant leader because he doesn't
Mhm.
like the attention.
At all.
He's somewhere with his head down doing the work.
Definitely.
And that's what a good leader does. He pushes others out front
Mhm.
for the accolades while he's in the background getting everything done, dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
Definitely.
I'm going to shout out our fearless leader. He's an expert in banking regulations, a brilliant, distinguished attorney, and an
Definitely.
all around good dude.
Definitely. Most
I just have to
definitely.
break it down to that
Most definitely.
because he has assembled and inspired a talented group of people who will lead this bank into the next season of providing top quality services to the community. So I know that looks like we've got a caller coming in, and we will go ahead and take that call. This is just the opportune moment for the caller to speak. Go ahead, caller.
This is the Reverend Dr. Andrew Ward. If I can get these names straight, I think Garrett handled some business for me some years ago. Is he still there?
No, sir. He's no longer with the bank.
He
And
retired.
there was another guy who was a Morehouse graduate. We had a lot.
Oh, did we lose you? Okay. Well, okay. Looks like there's another call. I don't know what happened to the first caller, but thank you for calling, Dr. Andrew Ward. Next caller, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Okay. May I ask you to turn your radio down a little bit? It looks like we're getting a little feedback from your radio.
Okay, just one moment.
Thank you so much for calling in while you make the adjustments to the radio so that we'll be able to take your call. We want to hear from anyone that has stories about Columbia Savings and Loan because it's been in the community for such a long time. Caller, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I have a question on myself. Well, maybe others. I've been trying to practice on raising my credit score very much because I went through a credit score program where I can raise my credit. Well, after they cleaned my credit up, I was able to obtain like 2 credit cards and that's it, and making sure I don't go into the same pattern where I get back in the same situation through my mortgage company. And it worked. And now I have a high credit score and I'm not abusing it. I'm just paying all my my creditors, my mortgage, etc., on time, and it's paying off. And now I have a 750 plus credit score.
Wow,
My
that's
Congratulations.
fabulous. Yes. Can you get to your question, please? Thank you so much for letting us know about that score. So that's fabulous. What can we help you with this morning?
I just want to know what can I I didn't. What can I do to try to improve, where I can get some things done for my home in regards to like my roof and things like that. Um, as far as banking, bank.
Okay, you mean like something like taking out a second mortgage on your property or taking out a mortgage on your property to maybe free up some money in order to make some improvements on your home?
Well, that was one, but I don't know if I want to. I refinanced. I refinanced before, and I think that's what got me in the situation in the first place. Is that what this? So when you refinance, doesn't that kind of put you in a bind? Because I think that's what happened to me when I refinanced my home.
What are your thoughts on that, Wes?
Ma'am, I think you have a very specific question, and I think it would be great if we could set an appointment with you at the bank and you come in and talk with us. Let me give you the
Okay.
number where you can call and make an appointment. It is
Okay.
414-374-0486.
Mhm.
Again, that's
Okay.
414-374-0486.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for calling. Is there another caller? Okay, I think that we are due for a break. But when we come back, one of the things that we're going to tell you as you continue to listen about a home buyer seminar that Columbia Savings and Loan is involved with. So that's one of the things that we will talk about after the break. Thank you so much. Keep the calls coming, 414-444-5250.
Mattie Bell Woods was born in Louisville, Kentucky. In the 1940s, Woods became a society reporter for African American newspapers. In 1964, she joined the Milwaukee Courier, reporting for several other Milwaukee newspapers and the Chicago Defender. She was also a freelance writer for Ebony and Jet magazines. Woods loved to dance. She was featured in Jet doing the electric slide. Her newspaper column, Party Line, was last written the week she died. Mattie Bell Woods, known as the First Lady of the Black Press, had been a journalist with the Milwaukee Courier for more than 40 years and was the oldest working journalist in the United States. She was 103 years young when she died.
This moment in Black History was brought to you by Wisconsin Black Chamber of Commerce.
It's Black History Month, a time to recognize and celebrate the achievements and progress of Black people. We honor and acknowledge where we came from, we celebrate and appreciate where we are now, and we commit to continue to make history as we move forward. Here at the Wisconsin Black Chamber of Commerce, we want to make history by making Black people the largest employer of Black people. Let's make history together. Congratulations on a history full of determination, motivation, and accomplishment. This is not just a month of recognition, but a time to plan to continue to create legacy and make change in our Black communities.
For printing and publishing from A to Z, stop by Milwaukee Times Printing and Publishing, 2238 North Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. Church fans, prayer or thank you cards, obituaries when you've lost a loved one, invitations for weddings, graduations, or special events, souvenir books, calendars, and so much more. Milwaukee Times Printing and Publishing offers business writing and editing, lamination, letterheads, business cards, and envelopes to match. Phone 414-263-5088. Now that's not all. Posters, banners, yard signs, and bulk mailing. That's right, bulk mailing. Milwaukee Times Printing and Publishing's print, not just copying. 414-263-5088 or 14263-5088.
Support comes from Milwaukee Art Museum, where all are invited to share art experiences together. The museum's collection and exhibitions bring visitors face-to-face with inspiring stories. Tours, art makings, and events of all kinds spark artistic exploration for visitors of all ages. Starting your art adventure begins at mam.org.
The 39th Annual Black Excellence Awards would like to salute the best individuals in our community. This year, special honorees are the African American Vietnam veterans, Herbert Anthony Jr., Bobby Bell, John Beverly, John Cottrell, Lamar Franklin, Roosevelt Hobson, Major Jones, Thomas McKinley, Robert Moulton, George Pumphrey, Antonio Riley, Otis Winstead Jr. Thank you for serving our country.
Black history is something to appreciate, celebrate, and participate. Play Ode is a mobile app that streams America's best Black-owned radio stations and podcasts from across the country. ODE stands for Our Digital Entertainment. Play Ode features music and entertainment for us and by us. Listen to WNOV The Voice Milwaukee on the Play Ode app. Elevate your radio listening and participate in supporting Black radio. Download PLAYODE or log on to odeaudio.com for info and insight.
You're listening to WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Money Talks with Attorney Coral. While we were on our break, we were joined by Dr. Moses Fuller. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Dr. Fuller? Mose.
Everybody want to put it.
Everybody wants to add another S.
They want me to be Moses. I tell them, I said,
You're
you know
Moses
what?
to us.
I said, I didn't part the Red Sea.
You might as well have, though.
But I'm quite sure I've parted some Red Sea.
Yes. And thank you so much. It's a nice surprise for you to come in. So we've got a caller that's on hold. Let's take that caller and see if they have some questions for either of you gentlemen. Caller, please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Charles, last name Grady. I just want to comment on the mortgage buying back in the days. I was listening to the young man talking about his grandparents not being able to get a mortgage. I myself came from Vietnam, and I went through the same scenario in '75, and with no bank lend me no money for a for a home. So I went through Nash Realtor, and Nash Realtor got me in with Columbia Savings and Loan. That's how I got my first house.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Grady. Appreciate you calling in with that. I think that's a nice segue to Dr. Fuller. You were going to share with us some information about your experience.
Right. Yeah, and Columbia Savings and Loan has been a blessing, to so many people. And to me and our church, St. Timothy Baptist Church, we organized our church in 1993. And in 2 years later, we had enough money, we accumulated enough money to buy a building. And so the way the Lord worked it out was that we was buying a church from another pastor, and he had Columbia Savings and Loan had his mortgage. So it was a great segue for me. Because when I went and talked to Mr. Gary, he really didn't give me a lot of pushback. That's one thing about Mr. Gary. When he was the president of the bank, he understood like working with churches and working with Black folks, and he also understood the mission of Columbia Savings and Loan, and that's what people in the Black community have to understand today. That number one, is the only Black bank in the whole city. The only Black bank north of Chicago, and
the whole state.
Yeah, the whole state.
The
whole state. And but not only that, it's the only Black bank. It's the only bank in the community that had really served Black folk that have been, so to speak, marginalized. Like the president was talking about, that they had the thing written into those covenants why they don't lend money to them. But Columbia Savings and Loan made black folks, made it possible for black folks to get mortgages. And for churches like myself that didn't have a lot of history yet, to also to be able to receive a mortgage. And I've been with the bank since 1995, and it has worked out tremendously, not only for me, but also for the church. All of my, almost every account that I have is with Columbia Savings and Loan. So, I mean, when I'm talking about Columbia Savings and Loan, I'm not talking about something I heard.
Right.
I'm talking about something I have experienced. And you know what? I would admonish anybody, every black person in the city of Milwaukee, you really do need to stop by Columbia Savings and Loan and help that bank continue the great progress that it has made in the last 100 years. Think about that. Especially when you come to banking. The way that the financial systems and institutions push back against not only blacks when it comes to finances, but black institutions. And when you have a bank, and you know that banks usually survive because not only do they have access to black folks' money, but they have access to everybody's money. And you know, and so, but you know, but with Columbia Savings and Loan, it thrived, and God blessed that bank to be around 100 years. By basically mainly dealing with black folks' money.
Yes.
That's a blessing.
That
and
sure
so I
is.
said, thank God to Columbia Savings and Loan. Thank God to the leadership. Amen. Mr. Gary and the workers, like you heard you talking about the young ladies that are there now, making this thing go on. And the other president, and our current president that we have now, who's doing a great job. I mean, the fortitude that he has, the leadership that he has, the tenacity that he has to say, look, we're gonna make this bank survive.
Right.
We're not gonna let it die.
Right.
And that's the spirit of Columbia Savings.
Absolutely.
President here, the senior president here is doing a great job also.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Looks like we have another caller. Caller, please go ahead.
Good morning again.
Oh, is this Dr. Ward?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry that you got disconnected earlier.
That's all
Not
right.
sure what happened.
It happens to
But
me
I
too
but I
often.
remembered your name, so thank you for calling back.
I want to say that I had an experience with Columbia Savings and Loan, and there was I think Garrett was the guy in charge at that time, and there was another guy who was a graduate of Morehouse. We had some verbal interactions. I wonder if he's still there.
I'm
no,
not sure
sir.
who that might be. A
I was
Morehouse.
talking
Well,
about-
anyway,
no, he's not there anymore.
I would like to be a part of that bank so it could be what we need. When I was at that bank, the community was serving that bank. You know, they were using that bank mainly, and I think that's gone off. And when I was working at United Realty, Beachy Brooks was on the board, right?
I think he was on.
Yeah, go ahead and
Anyway,
answer, Dr. Fuller, if you know the
you
response.
know,
You've been around longer than the rest of us.
You know, I think that Beachy was on the board.
I know.
Doing that. He was on. I think he was on the board for a long time.
About him, it's not good or bad. I suggested to him that I go to Columbia and get a loan. He directed me away from there for your information.
Okay.
But and I have found I usually use the credit union, and credit unions are usually better than banks because banks and mortgage companies are for profit. Credit unions are not supposed to be for profit. They're supposed to turn their earnings back into their members. But anyway, I want to say I appreciate that bank and I appreciate Keon, Dr. Keon. And y'all have a good one.
Thank you so much. Thank you for calling, Dr. Ward. So with this, all of this is a good point for a segue to talk about the history of Columbia Savings and Loan. This is Black History Month. So we need to talk about this Black-owned bank, this Black-owned Columbia Savings and Loan that has managed to survive 100 years. I would like to acknowledge again, because I had a long list of acknowledgments today, but I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Artie and Wilbur Halyard, who started this bank. from the research that I was able to do, and anybody jump in if you would like to add something, or callers 414-444-5250 if you would like to call in and add information. But from what I understand, the Halyards are from Georgia. They earned their college degrees from Southern universities and then moved to Beloit, Wisconsin, where they began a local chapter of the NAACP. All of this in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing to me. That'd be hard to do now. This is what they were doing in the 1920s, and then relocated to the city of Milwaukee in 1923. And 1 year later, Columbia Savings and Loan was born with, from what I've read, a $10 dollar figure to open this bank and get it going. And the reasons that they opened this bank, it went back to some of what you were saying earlier, Wes, that they saw that there was very terrible language in some of these realtor contracts where the realtors were being instructed to, don't sell my home to Black people. They wanted to keep Black people from moving into certain neighborhoods. And all the while that was going on, there were numerous Black businesses that were prospering. And yet the people who own these businesses were struggling to even be able to obtain home ownership. So kudos to the Halyards to have been so forward thinking that to them the solution was, well, let's start our own bank.
Amen.
Isn't that amazing?
Sure is.
So 100 years later, and still here everything is, but that took some steps. So from what I was told, or what I understand from my research, is that they first started this bank in a room inside of a funeral home. So, businesses had to double up back then. I'm sure the funeral home business was probably prospering and they were able to get in there and get things going. And for the first 10 to 20 years, as I understand, both Artie and Wilbur had to have jobs outside of this bank because the bank wasn't profitable enough yet for them to even pay themselves, but they did it anyway. So I understand that she worked as a retailer in a secondhand clothing store while he obtained his real estate license, which, was a very smart thing to do considering the business that they were in. But they worked outside of the bank for 10 to 20 years so that they could support themselves, because they were building something that was about helping other people. It wasn't about prospering themselves. They weren't able to take anything away when this bank first started. So that first location was inside of a funeral home, approximately 6th and Cherry Street, from what I was told. Right. Then they moved to 8th Street in 1933. But then when Highway 43 came through, it took that building and many other thriving Black businesses and homes that people had that were in that area. Is that something either one of you would like to speak to elaborate on a little bit?
So I wasn't around back then when 43 was built, so
that's over our head. But we've heard some stories.
Amen.
We got grandparents and parents that
my
have told us.
My grandmother let me know that essentially that entire neighborhood was Bronzeville. So the Bronzeville district that we have today, which is North Avenue, King Drive area, that neighborhood. Imagine if 43 wasn't there. And they were, instead of 43 going through there, their businesses and homes that are all Black owned. I can't remember who she said it was, but she said, like, there was a man that they called the Black mayor. Like, for Black Milwaukee, they had a mayor. So I'm not just talking about, they had a neighborhood. Like, no, they had a Black community. Bronzeville was it was the Black middle class neighborhood. So 43 comes through and destroys that. And I can't imagine that was an accident that 43 just had. I mean, I don't know all of the real estate in Milwaukee, but I can't imagine that was the only real estate available for a freeway to come through. So given all of that information, the Black neighborhood was destroyed. And that's why Columbia had to move to its new location, because of I-43 and and essentially because of we talk about racism at different levels. That's the institutional racism that goes on. You can't control where the government builds a highway.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when they come in and say, hey, you need to move? We're putting a highway in here. especially in, I mean, I'm not, again, not sure when it's built, but this is pre-segregation.
And you know, one of the things I was thinking when you was talking about the history, the history is really interesting. See, when you look at this bank, Columbia Savings and Loan helped to define so much in the inner city of Milwaukee when it comes to finance, when it comes to banking. I mean, the Halyards, I mean, they had a vision.
Right.
They had a vision, and they had a vision. And during that time, when racism in the banking industry and separation was so profound and so pronounced, they had these two Black individuals, that really, come from the South, educated, come from the South, where Black folks really had a whole bunch of tenacity, that they was going to survive no matter what. They wasn't going to succumb to what folks was trying to place on them. And he did that. And then he sacrificed, he worked, he put money into you. You start an institution like that, so Mr. President, you got to put money into it.
Right.
I know that because that's the way when you start that church, we know that's the case. So he did that. Exactly. And he did that, and he did it because this is huge for people that have a level of consciousness that they want to really reach out and touch and impact people, is that he did it because he wanted to help people that were marginalized and they was at a disadvantage, and not so much that they could not afford the house, but that the institution, the regular institutions that was lending money to everybody else but Black folks. And they saw this, and then you talk about neighborhoods, and when you look at the structure and the history of Milwaukee is not segregated because they don't have a history of segregation. That has been the mandate of Milwaukee ever since the Milwaukee was organized. That it was a city that had huge levels of segregation, and Black folk were basically pushed into a corner. And you talk about Bronzeville, Black folks usually when the Black folk came to Milwaukee, they stand from Juneau Street up to about where North Avenue is, not even quite to North Avenue yet. And the city of Milwaukee made sure they was there. And they wasn't going to lend, these other institutions weren't going to lend any money to any Black folk. Not only to live in the area where they were living in, to live in the place else, but the Halyards, and we thank God for the Halyards, who had this vision, Mr. President, who had this vision that they wanted to help Black folks.
Absolutely.
And that's the history of Columbia Savings and Loan. So once again, I encourage any Black person that listens to this program that didn't know anything or don't know anything about Columbia Savings and Loan Association, you need to find out. You need to become a part of this movement that's going to go beyond this 100-year thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're setting up for the next 100 years,
and
right?
Be a part of
with what we're doing right now.
And that's exactly right. So that's my thing on that. It was great. The vision, the mission, and the purpose, and the direction of the bank. And the young folks out here that don't know how to put your money, bring the Columbia Savings and Loan and be a part of this movement that's going to be the next 100 years to take this thing on.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's
so
right.
one other fun fact that I wanted to just add to this discussion, as we talked about $10 is what started the bank back in 1924. Wow. By the 1950s, this bank had accumulated assets worth $4 million. Wow. Imagine going from $10 to $4 million.
That's amazing.
$4 million is a whole lot of cheese even today.
Yeah,
and imagine if, back in the 1950s, what that was worth. Many, many times more than that. Yeah. And of course, the bank has assets many times more than that now. But still, it started with a $10 put in the bank in order to get everything going.
And that is so amazing that you talk about that. See, because that shows the fortitude of Black folks.
Absolutely.
The tenacity, when you're pushed in a corner, you're gonna come out. And that's what it's really all about, sacrifice. Knowing what you want and knowing how you want to help the community, knowing what you want, and believing that God can help you achieve what you want. That's how Black folks made it. I'm from Mississippi, and I've been around a while, and so I was born in 51. And I've been around a while, so I know that's how we made it.
Yes,
I know that.
I might misquote this, but didn't Mrs. Halyard say that this bank was started on faith, not finance?
That's it.
And
so that's it right there.
And I was reading Mr. Halyard. He said, "We're all in this together."
Yeah, that's huge.
So let's work for each other.
That's what he did, bro.
Like we're all in this together.
Right.
We're in this together. We have a shared commonality because of the color of our skin. Let's work for each other. Yeah. We don't have to. If I care about you, I'm going to treat you with respect. If I care about you, I'm going to make sure I'm not harming you. If I see something wrong with you, I'm going to try and take care of it. If we're working for each other, and if I'm working with your best interest in mind at all times, collectively as a people, if I understand every decision that I make impacts those that are coming behind me, if I know everything that I do not only impacts myself but generations to come, then I'm looking at things differently. I'm understanding life differently. I think that's why I like society, because that's why I liked sociology, is because how is the society functioning? How is the group as a whole doing? Yeah, we've got some all-star standout individuals. You always have exceptions to a rule, but as a group, collectively, as a people, how are we doing?
Amen.
You know, we do have people that we can look at and we can point and say, oh, we've got people that have quote unquote made it. Right. We've got people that we can look at and have astronomical amounts of success, but collectively as a people, how are we doing? Like collectively as a people, where are we? Yeah. And it is, and it's contingent upon those of us that quote unquote, and not necessarily quote unquote have made it, but let's say are making it.
Yeah.
It is our responsibility to give back and provide for. Like there's a sociological term, you can't eat what's not on your buffet. If somebody brings in a spread of food right now and it's got chicken, green beans, and mashed potatoes, we're eating chicken, greens, beans, and mashed potatoes, unless somebody brings something else in. Now, if we go across the street and they've got fried chicken, baked chicken, wings, barbecue wings, grilled wings, they've got deep fried fish, they've got catfish, they've got salmon, they've got tilapia, they've got bass, they've got trout, they've got lamb, they've got gravy. We're eating more things because there are more things on our buffet. So those of us that have more things on our buffet have to come back and say, hey, there's a better way to do this. Absolutely. You don't have to do things this way. Right. I understand how you're doing it, and I understand how that it's gotten you this far. And unfortunately, the enemy of great is good. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get someone to change that's been doing good. Coach, I'm successful. I'm 7 for 10. Yeah, but I can make you 10 for 10.
Right.
I can make you 9 for. There's always a better way to do something. Right. And even when you think you found the best way, new technology comes out to improve upon.
That's right.
So we can always be improving. We can always be learning, but it takes all of us together collectively.
Right. And that's the attitude that's going to continue to move this bank forward.
It is.
So I want to point out one more historical fact and have you speak on.
Attorney Coral, for just one thing, the Halyards were from South Carolina. That's how the bank got its name. Yeah. Columbia is the capital of South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's Columbia Savings and Loan Association.
Okay. Yeah. Were they both from South Carolina? Because I specifically read that she was from Georgia.
Now, Mr. Halyard was from South Carolina.
Okay, so maybe that's what it was.
That's where the Columbia comes in.
Okay, that's interesting. That's good. I'm glad you said that because I was wondering why the name,
where it comes from, right? Yeah, from South Carolina.
Yeah. So I wanted to point this out, especially to some of the younger people that may not know this. People know of Halyard Park, right? People know of there being a street called Halyard in Milwaukee. People understand that Halyard is a neighborhood in Milwaukee. I hope that based on this conversation today and these discussions that we're having, that people understand now where that name comes from. Amen. Yes. Tell everyone, Wes, what the parameters are of the Halyard Park neighborhood so people know. It might be sitting in the middle of it right now and not know.
Halyard Park runs from 43 to King Drive and North Avenue to Walnut. Yep. So it runs from Walnut to North Avenue, north to south, and then 43 to King Drive, east-west. And essentially, like I said before, that's where 43 cut through the black neighborhood. So, hey, we're going to take your whole neighborhood out, but we'll give you this little pocket of,
Right.
I don't know how many square blocks that is, but that is the neighborhood that they founded. It's named after the founders of Columbia Savings and Loan, Halyard Park. So if you have ever visited Halyard Park, if you ever been to Garfield Days, if you've ever been to Brownsville, you have visited Halyard Park. You are familiar with that neighborhood. That is the neighborhood named after the founders of Columbia Savings and Loan Association.
That's fabulous. So tell everyone where the address for Columbia Savings and Loan, and talk a little bit about modern day in terms of the products that this bank has to offer.
Definitely. And the other thing about Halyard Park, they also gave some of the first loans for the homes being built in Halyard Park.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Today, Columbia Savings and Loan Association, we offer savings accounts, certificates of deposit, and loans for mortgages, primarily mortgages. We do commercial loans. We do, I don't want to say personal. We do commercial loans, mortgages, certificates of deposit, and savings accounts. Now, your savings account is a traditional passbook savings account. It is where you can earn interest on the account. It's going to be more than your average saving account in a different bank. A certificate of deposit is similar to a savings account. The interest rate is higher, but you have to lock your money in for a specific amount of time. You can do 6 months to 9 months. You can do a 6-month CD. You can do a year, 18 months, 2 years. You lock your money in for that amount of time, and it provides you a higher rate of return than if you just have it in a traditional savings account. And of course, we have your home mortgage. If you are looking to purchase a home, you're looking to refinance a home, you're looking to do anything financially with your home, you can come to Columbia Savings and Loan, and we will assist you in every way possible.
That's fabulous. Tell them your number and tell them where the bank is located.
The bank is on 2020 West Fond du Lac in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is on the corner of Fond du Lac, North Avenue and 20th, where they all intersect. Phone number is 414-374-0486. Again, that is 414-374-0486.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh,
thank you so much, Wes. So we're not done yet, because I told everyone that before we would leave, we would talk a little bit about an upcoming home buying seminar that Columbia Savings and Loan is sponsoring. From what I understand, it's going to take place on March 6th. At 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. Is that your understanding, Wes?
Correct. There are 2 seminars. There are 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. at the location at 2020 West Fond du Lac in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If you are interested in purchasing a home, if you are thinking about purchasing a home, if you are thinking about purchasing a home in the next 5 to 10 years, it's never too early to start gathering information and learning what you need to do to complete this process.
Right. And so specifically, the seminar will cover basic steps in buying a home, how banks look at credit, types of mortgage loans and their benefits, available grants and down payment assistance, and things to avoid leading up to the home closing.
Correct. It will be a very informational seminar, and it will provide you with the practical how-tos and the practical steps leading up to going to the bank, getting you ready prior to you coming to see us, letting you know what you're going to need to have, what we're going to ask for, what we're looking for. So it's getting you prepared to make everything easier when you walk in.
Okay. And you can register for this seminar at www.pwsb.bank/seminar. The seminar will be hosted by a representative of Port Washington State Bank in tandem with our very own Ngozi Omegbu from Columbia Savings and Loan.
Correct.
Yes.
Ngozi is our senior loan officer, so she will be on site. Of course, we'll all be on site, but she will be providing information during the seminar to let you know what you'll need and how to be better prepared for this process.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you so much. Dr. Fuller, any closing comments?
The only thing I would say, I like what the president was saying over here, is as the bank moved to the next 100 years, I think the structure is set. Young guy here, young man here, this is ideal to carry the bank forward, President Young, president of the bank is young. The senior vice president of the bank is young. Got new ideals, new technologies. All of those things are going to be brought into this vision of moving the bank to the next, further into the 21st century.
Absolutely.
And that is what Columbia Savings and Loan is about right now. And this is why everybody in this community, need to be a part of this great movement, this great mission, and this great vision that Columbia Savings and Loan has put in place with all of the leadership just right in the room here. The board members, 2 board members in the room, and the senior vice president, and the great workers that they have at the bank that's not willing to quit or give up.
Right.
That's important.
They're there holding it down while the 3 of us are in here.
Yeah. Right.
So thank you so much, Dr. Fuller. Thank you so much, Wes McKinney, Vice President of the bank. And thank you to the audience. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'll get it together. Thank you so much for the audience for being with us today. Money Talks with Attorney Coral, sponsored by Columbia Savings and Loan Association. Thank you so much.